So yeah, great. So yeah, welcome, Tom. So Tom is the operations manager at TMD Friction, the world's largest manufacturer of original equipment brake friction material for passenger cars and commercial vehicles in the global automotive industry. Tom started out manufacturing at Tata Steel whilst undergoing his degree. Since then, he's progressed with the industry into management positions in HR for making the move into operations management. I recently met Tom at a manufacturing awards night we sponsored. Tom lifted an award that the team won and the roof nearly came off. So I couldn't wait to understand how he's been part of that and driving the culture to success. So Tom, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
No, thank you, Mark. No, I appreciate that. Very, very flattered to be asked to do this. But yes, looking forward to it.
Yeah, big time. And as I said before, massively appreciate you coming on, and particularly in the circumstances, because the last time we scheduled, you had to cancel for a very good reason. That it's you had a baby born that very day. So and really appreciate you actually messaging me, because obviously that couldn't be further from your mindset. But bizarrely, out of the 11 interviews I've done, 4 of them have been literally due imminently. Bizarrely. So I don't know what it is this podcast, but yeah, something to do with.
You've obviously got some sort of sixth sense going on there, Mark.
Yeah, it must be. But no, I really appreciate you coming on, mate. But hope all as well. So look, I always kick it off the first question, same as every time. What does it mean to you to be a leader? What do you say?
So for me, I think being a leader, it's enabling people to achieve their potential, and sometimes help them see for themselves what they're capable of, when I think people don't always see that. Is what I would say. And I think there's a key difference, and I know you haven't asked the question, but from what is leadership and management. And I think anybody can do that from a leadership point of view. I don't think you need to be in a certain position to try and enable people and encourage and support people. I think it's just something that you do.
Yeah. It's a bit funny actually. I started listening to a book today. Recommended. I think it was recommended by Dan Williams on this podcast, and he called Tribe. And it's all about, well, I presume it's about management leadership. And they started off by saying that anyone can be a manager because you're just following a process which has already been set, essentially. So it's more of a robotic process. But that's, people need managers. But leaders are the ones that inspire, they create the change, and they create those processes. And it's that resonates with me massively, because there is such a big difference, isn't it?
100%. And again, it's not leadership, in my opinion, it's not a positional thing. Anybody can do it. You look back in different people, and you look at people within teams, and you sort of go, well, they might not be a leader. They might be one of 10 people, but they stand out. Why do they stand out? Because they set a standard. They speak up. They'll challenge something. They'll get the others. You can see the other people looking to them, thinking, "Oh, actually, yeah. That's leadership for me." It's and then how do you help people grow and develop? That's the key bit. You've got to do something with it.
Completely agree. I love that. And so what I'll do, I like to dig around, and I'm really interested in your journey, because you've gone from the HR side to the operations side, which I guess is relatively unique. So I'm keen to dig around that. But getting right back to the start, the early days, I guess, of young Tom Russell. What do you want to be as a little lad? What was the motivations there?
Apart from wanting to be an F1 driver, which was always a little bit aspirational.
Never know. Yeah.
But never rule it out. I think I'm a bit of a geek, to be honest, Mark. I've always been into my computer games, so from being playing at Granny's house on the Sega Master System and developing through there. So computers was always my sort of interest.
Right. Yeah.
So as I was sort of teenager, it was I want to be a computer programmer. I want to sort of be within technology, that side of life. So that was the direction I was going at school and at college, and I even started university on a computer science degree.
All right.
And it took me about 3 weeks to realise this wasn't going to work for me. And I think I was in a room with 20 people and no one was speaking, and everyone was just sat staring at the screens doing the programming. I thought, there's fun and the satisfaction to the programming, but I need interaction. I need to interact with people here.
Yeah.
So that was where it started. And literally it was as straightforward as, right, I can't do this for a career. This isn't going to get the juices flowing. Enjoyed the business studies modules, went to the business school, had a look at the prospectus, literally read through it. What looks interesting here? Human resources. Well, that's people.
Yeah.
Okay, that looks interesting. I've done some things in my past, like Scouts, Duke of Edinburgh leader, that sort of stuff. Okay, so it's all developing people, interacting. Oh, that looks interesting. I'll go for that.
Yeah, nice.
So it's sort of 18 and a half. Just go, yeah, HR, that looks interesting. I'll throw me out in the ring for that and switch degrees in a year's time and start again.
Yeah, it's. I remember those brochures so fondly as well, because you're properly exciting, because they were. Do you know what I mean? Like I think you underestimate how important those are, because I think most people that is don't really know what they want to be. And like you say, you just look and go, that's interesting. I remember I've forgotten a few UCAS points and this type of stuff. Can I do it? All that. And I mean, I was exactly the same. You just see what you I think at that age, you know what you like doing, but you don't know what you want to do. If that makes sense.
Yes.
So
And I think that was part of it. It was, I just like interacting with people. I like having a laugh.
Yeah.
I like talking to people. I don't want to sit in a room full of people and be in silence.
Yeah.
What's going to tick those boxes? What is HR? I don't really know, but it looks like it'll tick those boxes. Let's give it a whirl.
Yeah, 100%. And was it what you thought it would be then, I guess? Because obviously you were in HR for a long time. And with the first was it quite a lot of placement work, I guess, at university by looks of things as well?
Yeah, so started on the HR track, and then I was fortunate enough to get into the Steelworks on a placement year, which was, I say fortunate because the rest of the cohort I was on, nobody else managed to get a year-long placement. They got sort of 2-3 month summer placements, but I got a full sort of 12-month placement, which was good. So I think that gave me the real, sort of university, did the usual stuff. You have a lot of fun at university, and life's not that serious. And I think I went on that place, and I think that really opened my eyes into what real work was, and graft and commitment and passion and things. So did that, and by the end of it, I'd been offered the job to come back as a graduate after I'd completed my degree, which was great, going into the final year, knowing, okay, I've already got a job. I don't need to join that race of where do I want to go. But I went back to that third year, a different person. Much more committed to the degree of what do I want to. I really want to look. I've got this chance now. I really want to learn. What can I get out of this before I finish this degree? I want to try and give it my all. So that was where I got into the Steelworks, and then obviously went back as a graduate there and focused in your line of work initially in recruitment.
Oh, really? Yeah.
So you did a lot of that.
Yeah.
And apprenticeships as well, which is something I still dear to my heart now. Managed 120 apprentices. Amazing. And obviously that you're absolutely part of a broader team, steering people's careers, creating opportunities, bit of coaching. What does that person want to do? What challenges have they got? How can we support them? How can we help them realize what they want to try and do? So that was super. And really it just took off from there, really, Mark.
What shifted from year 2 to year 3? We're doing your course, and like you say, you came back to a person. What shifted it? Was it seeing people working in that type of industry? Because that's the epitome of work hard is Steelworks and Teesside. So was a part of it?
Yeah, 100%. I think it was going in and sort of going. If you're committed to something, go all in. Don't sort of go in, have a bit of fun, and it's all right. I'll just sort of float by and get away with that. It was, well, no, actually, if you're doing it, do it. And I think I was very fortunate. I had a very good team that I was part of, and some very good managers that gave me a lot of freedom. And I got quite a lot of autonomy in some quite meaty projects. So you feel that sense of responsibility of, well, actually, if I do a bad job here, it's not just my degree result that's going to suffer. Actually, there's people's careers that might, not to be too grandiose at that stage of career, but you could set people back if you didn't help them, or you'd give them bad advice, or you set them on the wrong track. So I think it was that realization of, actually, there's a responsibility here.
Yeah, absolutely. And the apprentice side, like you say, is still involved now. So that must be something within you that wants to help people and be a part of that journey. Because obviously, it's very different when you're towards the end of the career, when you give back. But you wanting to do that right at the start of your career, that must have been something that that just must be within you, I guess.
Yeah, I've often tried to look, and where's that? Is it just who I am, and where are the influences? And I think definitely my dad, he used to do a lot of volunteering work and helping and supporting people. So whether or not I've just sort of subconsciously been influenced by, if you can do something and give back and support people, then sort of it's just, if you've got the time, it's the right thing to do. And if you enjoy it, then it ticks a lot of boxes.
So I say they're just probably values that you've always had, and you've got the opportunity to show them. Yeah.
Yeah, there was no training course that sort of said, actually, you need to help people grow and develop it. It's that's just how I see the world. That's just just how I'm wired for whatever reason that is.
Yeah, I get it completely, and it's something I'm very similar. I completely agree, and I'm trying to do more in schools now and stuff. And you can't beat that buzz. I don't think of feeling like you've made. I don't know. Sometimes I think, is it almost like a selfish buzz, thinking, "Oh, I feel great because I've helped someone." Do you know what I mean? Is it? But I don't think it is. It's just a good feeling where you think you've made a difference to someone, isn't it? It's bizarre.
Oh, massively, and it's got to really. I won't say his name because I've not checked that he would be cool with that. And just recently, literally in the last couple of months, it kind of came full circle, particularly with the apprentices when the Steelworks closed down at Teesside the first time in 2010. Mm-hmm. We're heavily involved in finding placements all around the region to make sure that all these 120 young guys and girls got to the end of their apprenticeships and got the bits of paper that meant they could actually go out into the world and get a job.
Yeah.
And by chance, one of the manufacturing apprentices, we're talking, 12 years ago now, has now just joined TMD as a shift manager.
Oh, really? It's amazing.
Yeah, so just purely by fluke. I had no involvement in the recruitment process, I can promise people that. But just by fluke, you sort of go, that guy could have gone a different path had we not have done that.
Yeah.
But we did, and actually, and look at him now, look at him flourishing, look at his career.
Yeah.
So I think things like that, you get a lot of reward, as you say. Is it selfish? Maybe, but I think who's getting the real benefit? It's other people in their lives that are getting the true benefit.
Yeah, and we all need little hits in life to make us feel good. Do you know what I mean? For whatever that reason, and that's a good deed to do. If that's what makes you feel good, then great, isn't it? That's my mindset on it.
Well, otherwise, what's the point of getting out of bed in the morning?
Yeah, isn't it?
If you're not going to give back and see things improve, then what are you doing? I don't know. Again, I don't know why I think that way. I just do. It's just in me, as you say.
Someone asked me last week, what's the best part of your job? And I said, promoting people. I love it. I love the feeling of making them feel good when they deserve it. What's the worst part of your job? Letting people go. Don't sleep at night. Despise it. I hate it. It's being the reason why someone is now in a worse position. It just never gets easier. It's part of the job, isn't it?
It is, and that's part of the job of being a manager, being a leader. Sometimes you've got to make those difficult decisions. I think, as you say, it's that bit I always look at in the row. Is this the right thing to do? Can I look myself in the mirror? Can I sleep well tonight?
Yeah.
And okay, you might have made a difficult decision that's got a bad impact on someone, but if you can if you can look at yourself in the mirror and go, but it was the right thing to do for whether it's the business, the person, or what have you. Yeah. If on balance it was the right thing to do, and you genuinely believe that, then you did the right thing. So don't beat yourself up.
Yeah, and that's taken me a long time to learn, because exactly that. I come back to every time. I've got my role is to put food on the table for my family, but also my team. And if that is hindered by a situation, then unfortunately that situation needs to be resolved, and that'll always be the justification. It's that's just part of the gig. Were you mentioned your dad? Were you influenced when you're younger? How much influence did they have? How active were they in your choices? Were they sort of quite autonomous and do what you want, Tom, or were they be influenced on you in that side?
From memory, I think it was very, very much autonomous. I think what they did, what they did, my parents, I think they created that they gave opportunities. Do you want to go to the clubs? Do you want to go? I'm not going to force you.
Yeah.
If it's something you want to do, we'll pay for it and we'll do all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But nothing was ever forced. But the opposite. But I was fortunate.
Uh-huh.
I was fortunate that those opportunities, and I had supportive parents, and I use the term fortunate because not everyone always has that. So I'm very grateful for the opportunities that I've been given.
Yeah.
And I think taking those opportunities and not being forced, it grows a bit more organically.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I completely agree. And in regard to getting back to HR and that sort of journey, when was it a time where you started to sort of inherit people to oversee yourself and supervise? I imagine you were managed for a number of years, I guess, were you, initially?
Yeah. To be honest, I didn't really get proper direct line management until I joined TMD.
Great,
which was sort of 5.5 years ago now.
Yeah.
I think before that, it was more seen as sort of as a more, I guess, experienced member of a team.
Yeah.
Sort of you end up with taking people under your wing and, you've got that, right, well, go and have a crack at that.
Yeah.
Come and have a look at, come and grab me in a couple of days and walk me through what you've done, and let's see what you're thinking. And why have you thought that? And so it wasn't until 5.5 years ago that I actually had direct line responsibility for people. But I don't think it hasn't changed what I do or my approach to people. I don't really care about reporting lines and things like that. If that makes sense.
No, it does, because if you want to help people, isn't it? It's if it's not your team, it doesn't make a difference sometimes. If you can add value, then you can, 100%. And in terms of when you were managed, I mean, can you pinpoint people in your career that's really helped you get to where you are today, would you say?
Yeah, definitely. So I think for me, you'll probably get sick of hearing me talk about the Steelworks, but I think it genuinely just underpins such a strong grounding in just how to operate as a professional. So the people I tend to talk about are from there. So there's three people in particular.
Yeah.
The first couple were, we used to call them the Johns, because they were both called John, the MD and the HRD. So obviously my department head, and the head of the site at Teesside. I think at the time at Teesside, there's some really difficult situations going on in the world, really big challenges in terms of survival. I always looked at how did they operate? How did they handle themselves? Well, they treated everyone with respect, dignity. They were open. They were available to people. They listened. They didn't get emotional. They tried to do the right thing. Wasn't always popular decisions, but again, did they do the right thing? It resonated with me. Yeah, I can get why they've done that, and that must have been a tough decision. Yeah. So seeing the things that were important to them of how do you treat people, really sort of grounding to me from a very, very early on in my career of actually people are critical, like really, really, really more critical than I think a lot of people realise.
Yeah.
So I think the Johns, I owe a lot to the Johns of setting, particularly the HRD, who was. I've got an interesting story which we may get into or not. As part of just the journey and how life works out. But very good at in work ethic, standards, deliver on what you're going to commit to. You know, it's not okay to just not turn up or just do something late. Get in those good habits from an early stage.
100%. I've got to wear the story now in case it doesn't crop up, so you have to tell it.
And I know. I've kind of segued into that, but it's just again, it's the way life maps out. You just can't predict these things. So obviously, had the IT HR bit, went into the Steelworks, and then the guy that I was interviewed by for the placement many months before I joined Steelworks, he changed role. And by the time I joined, there was a new HRD. And so John, day one, right, I want to meet Tom, new placement student. I want to meet him. And so off you go to the Steel House, as it was, the big building. You get to drive 3 miles because the site was massive. And so, oh God, I'm going to go to see the big boss. You know, sort of 20-year-old lad. Oh, this is a bit daunting. Sort of sit down, have a chat, and he asks you a bit about yourself. Oh, okay, he says, you got any family members work here? Oh, well, actually, my grandfather worked here as personnel director at the Redcar site, sort of many moons ago. Oh, who was that? He said, you're joking. I said, well, why? And bear in mind, I've never met this guy. I've got no idea who this guy is. This John at that point. And he says, you won't believe this. He says he was my mentor when I started out in the Steelworks in HR. So he was my mentor. No, can't be. No. So your grandfather was my mentor. Because I'm your mentor now.
Yeah.
All absolute by fluke.
Isn't
you
it?
just sort of look and go, how does that?
Yeah.
How does that align?
For me, I don't know about you, but I take that is always you don't know who you're dealing with right now. You know what I mean? The cycle of it. Like you say, the apprentice you're dealing with, whatever it be, they could have in their family. Just treat people well as much as you possibly can do, because if not, he's way too short-sighted. And one of my mentors always says, better to be owed a favour than a fiver. And I've always resonated with that, because if you're there for people and you can help them, then do so, because you just never know when you're going to need one back.
And I think, as you said earlier there, Mark, if you can help people, then you should.
Yeah.
And don't necessarily worry about the reward or the getting something back. If it's the right thing to do and you can do it. Because chances are, somewhere else along the line, someone else will help you out, or I could call it sort of like give forward.
Yeah.
Don't worry about what reward or what you might get or not get.
Yeah.
The right thing, just do it.
Yeah.
And in the grand scheme of things, other good things will happen at the right time.
Yeah, interesting. And I love the fact that I think you look at Steelworks, you could be forgiven to think big, big organization, loads and loads of people, everyone would just be a number there. Do you know what I mean? You'd be forgiven to think that, but obviously every time I hear from anyone that's worked there, it was completely opposite. It was a proper family community. And what Teesside was almost built on, I guess, to some extent, that just everyone helps each other, help each other out and there for each other. And yeah, by the sounds of it, they had bags of that.
Oh, enormously. And again, that sticks with you. That feeling of wanting to create that family feel at work. You look out for each other. You help each other. You don't see someone struggle. Yeah. And even now, I mean, when me and my wife moved into this house, you go and introduce yourself to the neighbours. Yeah. So I'm so and so, and you think, I know that name. Why do I know that? Do you work at the Steelworks? Yeah. I thought you worked there. Yeah, remember we did that 5 years ago, and the amount of reach that the Steelworks had on people, particularly in the Teesside area, you just don't know what's around the corner.
No, I mean, I remember we must have been year one of the business, maybe year two when SSI shut down. And I mean, literally, it was crazy. The phone wouldn't stop ringing. It was, there's just unbelievably good engineers and people at work, just like that. It's crazy, really, really big. And the impact that had on the industry for a while was big, really was. Do you think, obviously, you look at Skip to UA now, you look at TMD where you are, and as I said at the intro, there must be a reason why that, obviously you've got a lot of people there, but what that award meant for you as a business in terms of it was almost like, whoa, we woke everyone up. Do you know what I mean? Like it was such passion, and you could tell that was a business who care for each other, have a mission, have a goal, and this is just one little bit part of it, but it's really important to us, and it was the best part of the night by a million miles. So, have you proactively taken that sort of community spirit, I guess, into TMD? How's that all happened? Because that doesn't happen by chance, is it?
No, and it is an interesting question. I guess from when I joined TMD 5.5 years ago, I've always just tried to instill again what I think is the right thing.
Yeah.
So whether it was just within the HR team, try and create that good team. We still all go out for drinks and meals and things now, even those that have sort of come and gone and moved on. Because you build that sort of that camaraderie and that respect to one another on a human level.
Yeah.
And I say that purposefully because too often it's, as you say, it's a transactional relationship.
Yep.
And actually, if you start to reach a common ground and understand what someone else is going through, what's in their world, you build bonds that last. And I think that's for me what can help businesses really succeed, and that's then going into the operations role at TMD. Obviously, within the HR role, you've got quite a lot of influence over that anyway. Mm-hmm. But then even more so when you sort of going into the the site ops role, the book stops with you. You set the tone, how you behave, how you operate, and very much just try to replicate. Well, that's how I've been. That's what I did with the HR function. That's how I think things should be. That's what I'm just gonna replicate that now with how I do this. So almost regardless of whatever the past is the past, and however things were in the past, that's how they are. This is how I want to try and do things.
Yeah, great.
You might disagree, in which case come and talk to me.
Yeah.
But this is what I think works best. This is what I'm going to try and do. So let's try and get to know each other on a different level. But yeah, in terms of that award, so that absolutely, that reaction that you saw, which was it's amazing. At the time, I was shocked more than anything else because we just didn't expect it. Yeah. And that's more because we try and do the right things and keep, get the right people, do the right things, give people the room to do what they're good at doing.
Yeah.
And I'm a big believer in the end of the day, the results come. And so I think that after the tough 2 years we've all had, I think to get that recognition externally and not be expecting it as well, I think that was very much just like whoa, this is cool. Like this is, no one expected this.
Yeah. And to be appreciated on such a big stage like that.
Absolutely, and that was the thing of the get everyone up. I'm not bothered. I'm not sending. I'm not going. It's not just about me.
Yeah.
It's everybody. We couldn't take everybody. Obviously, there's hundreds of people at site.
Yeah.
But at least for the people there, it's not the Tom show.
Yeah.
Okay, I might be the head of the site, but it's everybody else. I can't do everything, and I don't know everything.
Yeah.
So it was really that team reaction of everyone coming together and going, you know what? Wow, we can celebrate something here. This is fantastic.
And what I loved about it, right, and you look at very obviously, even if you look at the pictures of people celebrating, is that, you know what, I think a lot of companies, they're not that bothered if their company wins awards, unfortunately, because the culture isn't right, and they don't share the same values or the same vision the company does. That obviously was the complete opposite. You know, from every single person there, they were elated. Do you know what I mean? Like it was such success that they shared, and I don't think you're going to get that in every company. I think some companies are there on a Friday night in a tux because they've been told to, and they should do, and they don't really. Do you know what I mean? They don't really care because it doesn't make a difference to their paycheck. And I think, unfortunately, if the opposite of that is what obviously you've managed to instill there, where, you know, winning, you know, just winning something which doesn't add salaries on, you know, doesn't add anything, that obviously means something. So no, I think that's huge, and it was brilliant to see the move from HR to obviously to ops. You know, I say that's not one you sometimes and always see. Was it organic, or was that something that you sort of proactively looked at then?
I think it was more organic than anything else. I think the way my mind works, I've always loved the how is it made programs and things like that, and I've always been interested. But how does that work, and how do you get to this and that and the other? Yeah. Everywhere, whether it was steel or the chemical works or at TMD, I've always made it my business, even in HR, to understand what the process is. How do we actually make steel? How do we actually make chemicals? You know, I want to be out on the shop floor and understand things. So I've always had that interest in a logical mind. Mm-hmm. So I think as the opportunity came up, it just presented itself, and it was almost like, well, actually, this is probably about as good as time as any, because I'm establishing the business and I know the industry already, and I know the site, and I know the people, and I already know what the challenges are. Yeah. So actually, if I'm going to make that leap, now seems like a good time to do it. So it wasn't part of the plan, to be honest. But then I've never had a plan, full stop. When people say, where do you want to be? I say, I don't know. Yeah. I'll see where the road takes me and get to where I get to. And as long as I'm enjoying it, that's the main thing. And the day that I stop enjoying it is the day I go, right, okay, I need to go do something else. Yeah. But that absolutely just organically, never had a sort of I want to be in ops, but just always been interested in it.
How much, because like you say, a lot of the duties were similar. How much of the job day to day changed for you then, typically from that role to this? Drastically.
Massively, Mark. Because you go from, sort of the head of the HR function. That's sort of your bread and butter. That's where you've sort of developed. You know it. You've got a lot of years. You kind of you know what you're doing. Mm-hmm. To then go into the ops seat, all of a sudden you've now got safety, which is laws, legislation, likewise quality, production, engineering, IT, supply chain, all these things that you've sort of sat alongside and you sort of see it. You think, I kind of got a bit of an idea of that. Then all of a sudden, you're not just focusing on one function anymore. All of a sudden, you can't go, oh, hang on, which issue do I look at the minute, or where do I go now? So it changed dramatically from that sort of single focus of one topic or one discipline to all of a sudden I've now got multiple, very varied, all looking at different things, all wanting different things, and need managing in different ways. Yeah. So it was enormous, Mark. Yeah. Absolutely enormous.
How do you manage yourself in that sense? Because that's a lot to take on. New baby, everything. Do you know what I mean? There must be some personal development, some stuff, I guess, that you do to try and manage your own mindset, I guess, about that type of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. One of the big things similar to this, listen to podcasts, talk to other people, listen to what other people's stories are. Yeah. I don't care who anyone is. I think you can talk to anybody and take something away from it and apply it. It might not be a big thing, but sometimes it's little things, and you sort of go, okay, that resonates. I can understand how that might help. So I think it's massively it's listening to other people, and not trying to see what life is like in other people's shoes, and taking bits that you think actually that'll help me out there. Yeah. But again, it's not something I don't really consciously think about it. Yeah. I don't. Yeah, and I've often rankled with this one. I don't worry about my work-life balance because I'm not one person at work and one person at home. Yep. I'm just the same person wherever I am, no matter what I'm doing. Yep. So I don't see I'm work Tom, I'm home Tom. I'm just I'm just Tom, and that's just who I am. But I think listening to people and seeing what other people have experienced, I think you can take a lot from that.
I think you mentioned that as well. I completely agree. I think too many people split those two up. They're two different parts of your life. And I think if they are two parts of your life, the balance is wrong, because essentially you don't see the same value. You know, if you're the same work, life, and home, then you know you're in the right place because you're passionate about both. Do you know what I mean? And unfortunately, they're the people who, you know, I feel, sounds horrible. I do feel really sorry for people who hate the job and look at the clock every time and think for Friday. I just think everyone's got a choice, so they shouldn't stand for that. You know, you get one life, but it must be horrific to be that. We all have bad days, but to have that where you're at work majority of your life, to have that balance where I can't wait till 5 o'clock or can't wait till Friday. You know, people need to really help themselves in that situation, for me. And it's not always as easy as that. I appreciate that. If people don't have the same opportunities as everyone, but you've still got an option to try, essentially, and do what you can.
You do, and I think that it sort of comes back to the early questions on the leadership thing. You know, people are looking for people are motivated by different things in life. Some people are very much bought into, well, what's the vision? What's the purpose? Why am I coming to work? What's the bigger reason? Mm-hmm. Some people are very much bought into, I just want to come to work and pay the bills, but I want to be treated with respect when I come to work.
Yes.
I'm not really bothered about the vision, but I want to be treated like a human being and treated with a bit of respect and a bit of dignity.
Yep.
And I think that's then the challenge is trying to create something that everyone's not always going to buy into everything that I try and do.
Yeah.
But if I can get everyone to buy into at least a little bit,
mm-hmm.
and they might all buy into different bits, but as long as there's something in it for people that they go, you know what, I can attach myself to that.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit more than just coming to work to earn a paycheck and I can't wait until the clock strikes. And I'm not saying I'm perfect at this, by the way, Mark, by any stretch. I've got a long way to go to get to a point where I could say, you know what, everyone that works under sort of my leadership loves it for whatever reason. Nowhere close to that. But I think that's the ambition. Yeah. It's just giving everyone a reason to care. Yeah. Whether it's a personal reason or a bigger reason, give them something to want to come to work and why that's good for them.
What would you have any specific advice for? Because you get a lot of people who want to change hearts and minds and want to change culture of a business, and perhaps have inherited a culture of a business and want to change that. I mean, is it a number of compounding things you've done to try and get where you are today? Like you say, you know, there's always somewhere to go, and there's always things to improve on. But you know, are there any things you do which you think move the needle, I guess, with improving the culture of business and how people work?
For me, I think the biggest element, I think it's listening.
Yeah.
Get out and talk to people.
Yeah.
Ask them, how's your day? Like, it's rubbish. Why?
Yeah.
Why?
Mm-hmm.
I will so-and-so's just come down and give me a rollicking. And it was in front of everybody. Okay, I can see why that might upset you. That'll probably upset me. I can get that. Or this machine doesn't work, or whatever it might be. I think just talking to people and understanding empathy is one of my big things. Because again, it goes back to that human relationship. If you just go down and say to someone, why haven't you made enough today?
Yeah.
How valued do they feel as an individual, as a human with emotions? Probably not. If you get into well, actually, I know when your wife's birthday is because, you know, you've asked me this, or you said, oh, what you do at the weekend? So I'm doing this. Oh, great. How was your weekend? Was the birthday meal good?
Yep.
You start to just build those relationships, and it gives it what it does, in my opinion, is that opens doors for people. It builds security that when they've got an issue, that I think a lot of workplaces struggle with receiving honest feedback.
Yeah.
Because it's usually quite something to fear. Oh, I don't actually say that because what might happen.
Yeah.
I think if you go out and you talk to people and you listen and you empathize and they realize there's a human connection here. Well, actually, Tom, do you know what? That's really, really getting on everyone's wick, but no one dares say anything. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, what would you want to see happen? Yeah. And I think one of my previous managers, it was a really good thing. He used to say, if I was Father Christmas and you had one wish, what would it be? And I find that really powerful because it just gets people to think, well, actually, do you know what? If just that was sorted, that'd make my life so much more enjoyable. You go, right, leave that with me. I'll see what I can do. And sometimes I can go away and get it done. Sometimes it's helping them go away and get it done themselves, and they don't realise, well, you can just do that, can I? I didn't think of that. Just go and do it. Yeah. Go for it. See what happens.
I like that.
So it's listening to people for me, Mark, and empathising and understanding where people are coming from. I think that helps change the culture, because it's not just what I want the culture to be.
Yeah,
that's my method of trying to understand what people want from their culture.
Yeah,
is listening to people and asking them, understand them.
Yeah, that's tremendous. I'm going to use that. I'm going to follow Christmas today. So yeah, but, no, you're so right, because it is listening, isn't it? And I think I'm much better right now, but I think I kicked myself before when I first started for getting too close to my staff. Do you know what I mean? And people say, don't be friends with your staff, don't be too close. And I probably battled with that. And now I think I am really close to my staff, and I like the fact I'm close to my staff, because I want to know what the fact, about them, about the families, what they're doing the weekend, because once you understand them, you can help them, and you can understand, you get to see when they're down and when they're not right. I know some of my key staff, if they're not 100%, I know if something's wrong. And I think, like you say, if you get that stage where you can just ask them and listen and just be ear to them, it's trust, isn't it? If they can, then they trust you to say, look, this isn't working for me. It's massive.
But that to me, just hearing you say that, is that not just Mark? That's just who Mark is. Someone said, don't befriend your people that work for you. Oh, actually, that's bollocks.
Yeah.
Sorry, I probably shouldn't swear. Sorry, Mark.
No.
But that's who you are.
Yeah.
If you're genuine and that's who you are, then there's that genuineness, authenticity. Then people, you get that trust. I think if you try to be something you're not, that's not you, they'll just see through it.
And I think that with leadership, I think when people start being a leader, you're thrown into it. You kind of go, this is right. I need to be X, Y, and Z now. Where, like you say, the best leaders just who they are, and you're either a good leader or you're not. But I think if you're true to yourself, then you've got much more chance of trying to fake it and pretend someone or not.
100%. And at the end of the day, if you're true to yourself and it works out, super.
Yeah.
If you're true to yourself and it doesn't work out, at least you're true to yourself. If you try and be something you're not and it doesn't work out, then you'll go, well, maybe I should have done it the way I wanted to do it. It's at the end of the day, I think, and it's hard work being something you're not as well. It's easier to just be yourself.
It is. The first company I ever worked for was a proper work hard, play hard recruitment firm, owned by millionaire DB, Aston Martin driven, and these Cockney, and at a time when I was like 19, 20, I was thought, I want to be them. I want to be them. And it's only now I think back and go, you know what? No disrespect, but they were 45-year-old, 3 wives in, buying Aston Martin, DB, buying Aston Martins and out 5 nights a week, probably to try and cope the fact that they were very unhappy. And I couldn't think of anything worse. Couldn't think of anything worse than me like that. But you don't see it sometimes, do you? And yeah, I think sometimes and I remember going, right, I need to be like them. I need to buy shirts that they buy the same shirts that they buy. And they're almost the wrong impressions, I guess. And I think nowadays, if you're around a good leader, they're the people you want to be, who have the right values. And like you say, you've taken that on from the Johns and the Teesside. And obviously you've utilized that. You've added that in terms of who you are, and you've created a culture team, which is brilliant. I love the fact what you said before is, if you have to make decisions, because we do have to make decisions, we can't all have businesses and grow teams just with things that people want. Sometimes we have to make the decisions. But yeah, I like the fact you said this is what's happening. If you don't like it, come talk to me. And that's the difference, isn't it? Because I think back in the day, this is a decision, like it or lump it, and that people lump it nowadays, particularly in a market like this where it will be off. Simple as that.
Yeah, and that's it. Now it's a seller's market in that sense, and you've got to be, if you're not genuine with people, they'll see through it. Yeah. And if you try and fob them off, they'll see through it. And it's back to that being human, being valued, being respected. Yeah. If I try and fob you off, you probably don't feel that respected. So why would you want to work for me? Why would you want to bust a gut? You probably wouldn't.
And COVID was a good example of that, because the amount of people that we spoke to who wanted to leave 6-7 months in because they'd not been spoken to once. They'd been furloughed, they'd not been called, they didn't know what was going on, and they literally was as transactional as you're ever going to be. I mean, I imagine that was a challenging time, I guess, with automotive and you know what I mean, scary, I guess. And what was your role at the time then? We were just trying to sort of keep everything as it was, I guess, and keep things together.
Well, I remember it vividly. I think, if I'm being truly honest, it was rabbit in the headlights for the first instance of like, oh my God.
Yeah.
They talk about when you take a new job on and a new challenge, make sure you're set up for success.
Yeah.
I chose to take the job on at the start of the pandemic, so I'm not sure what was going through my mind at the time, to be honest. But it was very much, and I'll remember it for as long as I live. That time, Boris stood up and said, "Right, from midnight tonight, that's that."
Yeah.
And obviously, the work the next day, you can imagine the emotion and the concern and things for people. And you sort of go, right, well, what's the right thing to do here? What is the right thing to do here? Because there's no rule book now.
Yeah.
There's no little, I remember studying that and let's go and read this and right, what do we do? And we were very quick to sort of go, well, actually, look, we're all in this together. Yeah. We've got a super strong order book. We can't just turn around and say no, but we've got to do something to make people, and I use this, that feel safe.
Yeah.
It wasn't just about being safe. It was about giving people the ability to feel that they were safe. And we did that super quick. Fortunately, for the first few months, we didn't have to do any furlough. But again, just to your point, there wasn't a rule book. But when we did do the furlough, it just felt normal to say, right, well, every week, just give them a quick call or sort out a little Zoom meeting or something so that everyone can get on for half an hour and just say, like, get a cup at 3:00 Thursday, make a brew, get some biscuits, just get on this call. What you've been up to, what's happening in the workplace, just to try and keep that bit of contact, that bit of interaction. But that wasn't because of the rule book.
Yeah.
To your point, it's just what you do, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And that would have definitely made a massive difference, because we're exactly the same. I remember just jumping on going, I've got nothing to tell them here, but I just need to jump on and tell them I've got nothing to tell them, but tell them that this is the situation. And it was, it was just, I remember that so vividly, like you say, when that was announced, it was petrifying. It was the worst 2 days, probably worst 2 days of my life, worst 2 days of my business life, without doubt. And I'd never heard the word. This was before furlough schemes and key workers and stuff. And it was just like, shit, what now? And even when the furlough, I thought, what's furlough? Do you know what I mean? Suddenly, I'd imagine even more so in like a HR role, where obviously you've got to have all these answers to questions never been asked before. It's absolutely crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, and it was. And that was the bit that I think was the most interesting. And that's where you sort of start to see sort of who's with you and who's not.
Yeah.
When you're in those difficult situations, sort of who fades away in the background and sort of runs and sort of goes, right, well, I'll just look after myself.
Yeah.
And who are the people that are stood there with you going, right, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
Right, what can I do to help this? I think we should do this. That sounds like a great idea. Go and do that.
Yeah.
We none of us know whether it's the right or wrong thing or not, but it feels like the right thing to do. Just go and do it. If we get it wrong, we can change it tomorrow. It's not the end of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it brought out. It showed, for me, I think it showed a lot of the good in people. People very quickly realised it normalised us all. We're all human beings at the end of the day. Doesn't matter what job we do, this could get any of us. And at the time, obviously, it was that petrified, whether it was from a business security or thinking, what, I could get this, what if it kills me? And everyone going through that whole emotion.
God, I remember the right at the start of it, you saw someone right at the top of the road, you'd be thinking, oh, bloody hell, like some of the top, like, I've got to dodge them. It's crazy, isn't it, how scary it was, and giving people as wide berth as you possibly could do. But which is, you bang on, it was making them feel safe as much as you could do, because no one knew what was right and what was scientific, and rules were changing left, right, and centre. But yeah, and that's part of it. I think that's part of us as a leader role, is to make people, is to bring them into a safe and welcoming and an environment where they can flourish as much as possible. I know that translates from COVID, that translates to wherever it is, and now you know people have changed, whether flexible working, the hybrid approach, and I think businesses have changed for the better. And that's not, you know, my views on working from home probably aren't the same as others. I think it's good for some people, but I'm personally think long term it'll have a bit of effect on people work from home. You know, that I think flexibility is great, but just work from home, I don't know. It's not for me. I think it's gonna you right back to start. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, from a personal perspective, I agree with that. I think it's how you get that mix and that balance. You know, we were talking in that sense of now with first child, and you then go, actually, it's all, you know, go back 3 years, there's a little gap in the diary. I think today kind of go, right, I can get home and then I can have a call in the car, then finish off the calls later on. Then I'm already home, and I'm home that half an hour early. But the day is lost, and I've lost nothing at work.
Yeah.
You go back 3 years ago, people would be going, "What are you doing, leaving this time? Like,
it is,
what's
isn't
going on there?"
Yeah, exactly that. And you're having a meeting over video instead of face to face. That's to save 2 hours travel time. So
yeah,
is it? I think.
But there's that balance, as you say. The video works well for a lot of things, but it will never ever totally replace that people being in the same room. Because how do you build a human connection?
Yeah,
properly, a proper, genuine human connection.
Yeah, it is completely. So exactly that, and I think that's what companies have got to get right. And I think most of them are trying to do that as much as possible, and they've almost been forced to, I guess, if more so now, because the war on talent is so tough that people are trying to get. It's a balance between giving people what they want versus making sure it's drive the business, and some of those sometimes can really clash. And you look at the factory where some people just can't ever work from home, some people can all the time, and it's that's not fair. It's one of those, isn't it? It's a real tricky balance, I guess.
It is, and I guess that comes back to what's your values, what's important to you, and trying to get an alignment within a team. Because if you think it's important in your business that people are in the office, and it's a bit more balanced, and that individual thinks I should be 100% at home, then the fit's probably not right. Yeah. You're just finding out a little bit early that there's a misalignment somewhere.
Yeah.
On that, because there's no right or wrong.
No, there isn't.
I think to what you think, we're both right.
Yeah.
To other people, but it's then finding the fit, and if you can find that fit and it works, that's the place for you.
Exactly that. And we looked at, right, okay, the real senior people, they're good enough, they can work from home. But actually, you think, well, no, they're the people you want around the non-senior people to learn from, because everything you've ever learned is from the people above you. So you need that mix. So it's a tricky balance. I mean, what do you see? Touch wood, we're out of that situation for time being. But what do you see as the biggest challenge to manufacturing? Or I guess you can use an example if you like. But what do you think are the biggest challenges that you're trying to overcome right now? Would you say? Because it's tricky at the moment.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely tricky, and I think it's getting harder as well. You've only got to look at energy costs. We see it. We're feeling it at home. Businesses are feeling it just the same. It's definitely a challenging world out there. I think the big things for me, from a manufacturing, from speaking to other manufacturers as well, it's very much a how do we improve productivity, whether that's automation, whether that's upskilling. I think that's where we're going to get benefits from efficiencies and ultimately profitability. Because at the end of the day, let's be brutal about it, that's what keeps people in jobs. You've got to make money at the end of the day, otherwise it doesn't stack up. So for me, I think it's looking at how do we become more productive with what we do, and that doesn't necessarily just mean stick a robot on everything. That's sometimes educating people on different ways and means of doing the same job, but just doing it in a better way. But the thing behind that is the skills. Then we need people to teach people how to run these machines, how to maintain, how to program. We need people to teach people all these skills as well. So it's a productivity but a skills thing. And I think the biggest challenges we've got in the industry are the investment it's going to need for that. And I can imagine there's huge demand on people in the world of automation at the minute. And likewise, we want more people that have got abilities to program robots and things that you go back 5 years ago, we wouldn't really be on the radar. And then you start going, well, hang on, we haven't got anyone that can do that. We're going to have to get now. If we want that bit of kit, we're going to have to train people and develop these skills. And I think that's where the shift is coming, because I think manufacturing generally quite traditional. I think it's accelerating that shift now, as the pressures outside in the global markets dictate. So for me, productivity but skills back to people.
100%. And the warning signs have been there for a while, haven't they? You know what I mean? It's been accelerated because of things like COVID and people retiring and this and that. But the warning signs have been there for a while. There's not been enough apprentices coming through for a good while yet. And there's some good companies, and Tini, one of them, making sure that apprentices are coming through. But a lot of companies, unfortunately, haven't got the luxury. They're too short-sighted. And obviously, the government only this week are talking about what they need to do. But there's a big difference between talking about and doing it. That's the thing.
100%, Mark. And these are some of the discussions I have with other sort of people in manufacturing as well at the moment. Ultimately, in an ideal world, we'd have something on a governmental level. Best case scenario, Worst case scenario would be regionally, and a lot of businesses agreeing to work together. But that takes an enormous amount of responsibility within people as well, to commit to that, because ultimately we're all after the same people. And to then sort of go, right, how do we collaborate? Because we all want the same thing. How do we collaborate to help this come to fruition, for the benefit of us all? But at the same time, you can't do that and have another company set up and just swoop in and just hoover everybody up. It's a real tight balance at the minute. And what the answer is, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's somewhere between investment and collaboration.
It is.
Gone are the days of the British Steels and the ICIs when you had hundreds of apprentices every year coming out of the TTEs and the Middlesbrough colleges of the world. We haven't got that. Companies haven't got the funds to do that on the grand scale they used to. We've got to find a more modern way of doing it.
And these are skills which it's going to take time, unfortunately, but these are skills that need to be trained and it's, within the apprenticeship level, and they need to be told about and taught about in schools much more, because you like say you get back to where you look at computer games and how things work, and if there's a fair chance, if somebody come in your school and said at the time and at the time robotics was there, show them a KUKA robot or something, and actually how that could have blown someone like someone's mind and gone, right, okay, brilliant, I want to be an engineer now, because it's a very similar programming that type, but actually these skills that you can't teach in 6 months' time, these are real high skills. But unfortunately, they're going to need to teach people and need to teach this generation to do so, because yes, the robots are coming, which is brilliant, automation, and we can't hide behind that. But that isn't going to, the stigma attached is going to make sure there's no jobs be left. No, it's going to create different jobs with just different sorts of different skills. So and teach them.
100% agree. And I think there's that fear of automation, because it means even as you say there, it means different people with different skills and usually better paid.
Exactly.
Better paid skills as well. And I think that's one of the jobs we've got, and I think we've got a responsibility within the manufacturing industry. Is how do we help, to your point there? How do we help people get excited? Because let's be honest, if you went into a school now and said, "Oh, do you want to go and be an engineer at the brake pad factory?"
They say this
doesn't sound that exciting.
Until they see it and go, "Wow," do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's things like, I'm heavily involved with Make UK. Obviously, they're starting to do more. How do we have like national manufacturing days and things? And how do we coordinate companies, open their doors to anyone in the community, children, adults? Do you want to come and see what we do? Come on in for a couple of hours. We'll talk you through it. We'll put some tea and biscuits, and then we'll walk you through the factory. And the amount of times that people do come through the factory for the first time, or even customers, brake pad, like mechanics that fit brake pads, they'll come for factory tours, and at the end of it, go, "Well, what do you think of that?" They go, "Amazing! Didn't know this much went in to getting this at the end of it. Like, this is unreal." And you can see that excitement, and they're like, "Well, that's cool." And it's how do we get that into people's minds from a young age? And they go, "Actually, it's quite cool to be an engineer."
Exactly that.
At the minute, it's cool to be an influencer.
That's it. Exactly.
But we can't all be influencers.
No, exactly. And you'd hope now, with the amount of money that's involved in getting a degree, and the no real synergy between having a degree and getting a good paid job now, that you're going to see people go, "No, this is an apprenticeship within robotics engineering or whatever it would be, because I can earn 60, 70, 80 grand a year." And I don't think those two marry up in people's minds, because it's not taught about. There's still the curriculum at school, getting back to it, is just way too archaic, and it's just not including any of this. It's crazy.
Yeah, and it's back to where probably bad. I'm going to a bad example now for the pair of us here. When you're at school, the aspiration that's drilled into you is be a manager, wear a shirt. That's what you should have. That's what success looks like. Back to your point, the guy driving the Aston Martin and going out partying all the time. That's what success looks like. Well, actually, is that what success? What does success look like? If success is earning a good wage, having a good trade, and being able to look after your family, you don't have to be a manager for that.
Exactly that. Exactly that.
Plenty of other opportunities out there.
And I'm in awe every time I walk around a factory. I'm in awe of because I am unbelievably poor technically. I can't put a picture up. I'm in awe of people who are like, I walk around thinking, it's such a skill to have. Such a skill to have. I walked around Magna last week. It's the first time I walked around Magna, and I've walked around hundreds of factories now. Just like, this is I love it every time I walk in a factory, but just I'm at home, how much of it's like an art. When you see a factory in full process, full go, where just everything's working, everything's moving, it's just like that. If I was 15, I'd probably gone, I want to be an engineer. Do you know what I mean? I would have.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think that's what drew me into manufacturing. People say now, don't think I could work in a bank.
Yeah.
I don't think I could sit in a high rise in the city centre. It's nice to go and walk on the shop floor and see something get made.
Yeah.
It's tangible. You can touch that. You can see a difference there.
Yeah.
But I get excited by that. It's how do we get others excited? That's the challenge now.
Yeah, I completely agree. No, amazing. There's a couple of quick fire ones. We've probably gone through most of them, but we'll quick fire them. What are 3 things which you think make up a good leader?
So 3 things for me. Easy one for me: integrity. Integrity/honesty, which we've sort of, I think, probably kind of touched on. That's huge for me. To be able to, be able to be trusted, be able to look in the mirror and believe, you know what, it might have been a difficult thing, but I've done the right thing for the right reasons. Yeah. So I think integrity is huge for me. Empathy as well. Putting yourself in someone else's shoes and them seeing you do that, and you understanding what their issues are, and then trying to help them solve that. Sometimes themselves, sometimes you can help them a little bit more. But I think empathy is massive. Understanding people. And I think the third one, it's kind of in 3 little bits, but they're kind of all the same. It's like listen, take feedback, but at the same time with that, don't be afraid to ask questions. Yeah. Which I think, again, it's trying to get information out of people. I think if you actively seek other people's views, you're genuinely listening to them, I think you end up making better decisions yourself. Yeah. Because you get that rounded view. And I think by asking that question, you show a level of vulnerability as well that I think resonates with people, because they go, oh, okay, so he might be the boss, but he's not afraid to ask the question. Actually, I don't know that. Like, what is that? I don't know. Yeah. And I think the ability to ask people questions and listen intently, I think is huge for me from a leader. So yeah, integrity, empathy, and listening / asking questions / vulnerability. I know I've kind of fudged
it's all in it, and
one there.
I actually really like the vulnerability one, because again, that's something that I think you're too scared to show when you first start, because you want to be this rock solid leader who is indestructible, but actually people don't resonate with that. People, no one is indestructible. When I ask people, but some people I know, do you get nervous? No, you never get nervous. I'm thinking, you're human. You get nervous. I mean, come on. So it is.
You do, and that's back to anything else. Your first day in your job, you always go in. There's that thing in your mind going, well, I must be perfect. I need to be absolutely perfect here. And actually, if you step out of it, why?
Yeah. Exactly.
You knew it's something everyone's got to learn, no matter what your job is or what level you're at in an organisation. You need to learn. You need to understand, and no one has that on day one.
No, don't. And we try. When people start here, we drum that into them. First thing I would say is just make mistakes. Don't be scared to make them. I'd rather see you make mistakes than not try, because we can fix mistakes. It's simple as that. And you're always going to make mistakes. You make mistakes for your whole career. So if you're scared to make them, you won't progress. And it does settle them down a little bit, because you're right. People come in going, and he's perfect. Particularly when they work in an environment where people seem to them perfect, then they put them on a pedestal a little bit.
But that to me, Mark, that to me is saying you're doing two key things. You're giving us a level of security. It's safe. It's safe to make a mistake. Which is huge. But then you're showing that level of vulnerability yourself and leading by saying, we all make mistakes. It happens. It will always happen. No one's perfect. You then see that. Okay.
Yeah.
And if I do get it wrong, I know Mark's not going to shoot me. He might have a terse word with me, but then he's going to help me understand where it went wrong and how to not do it next time and grow from it. And that's huge. That's absolutely massive for me.
Definitely, mate. And just fine. So what if you go back to sort of day one, I guess, day one of trying to think where managing someone, but day one of you starting out, I guess, what advice would you give yourself knowing what you know now?
What, going back day one or day one in current job?
I'm gonna go day one current job. Yeah.
Day one current job. don't be. This is what we've just said there. Don't be afraid to ask questions.
Yeah.
Just ask questions and ask questions and ask questions. How is that? Why is that? How does that work?
Yeah.
Understand it, because if you pretend to understand it, you'll get found out. And I think don't be afraid to ask questions. By far, I don't think we can ask enough questions.
Exactly that. And future wise for TMD now, what's the plans for the next few years? I imagine you've got things you want to achieve and places you want to go.
Yeah, so I think culturally we want to keep driving through the cultural improvements that we've seen in the last few years. As I say, we're on a journey with that. These things don't happen overnight. So we want to see that develop. See other people come through the ranks and show them what leadership is, and give them the chance to learn and become leaders themselves and understand what they can do within their roles in TMD. And I think ultimately the key focus is sustainability. How do we make sure that the factory is run in the correct way, that it's got a secure future from a sort of an economical perspective, but also from an environmental perspective, as that becomes much more in the fore. But yeah, I think it's continuing that journey in the culture and making sure that we've got a good, viable business, and with the challenges that we've got in the marketplace at the minute. It's good. It's really good.
Yeah, no, look, it's always been brilliant and really, really beneficial for me personally, massively, and hopefully I'm sure will be for others as well. Just in terms of what it takes to build a culture, and what it takes actually to get the best out of people, and that's for me what I've taken out in terms of the importance of listening to people, empathizing, with them, just essentially being a good leader, try and get the best out of people. I think there's loads of takeaways. So I really appreciate it, Tom. Thank you so much.
No, thank you, Martin. Again, flattered that you asked me to do it, but no, I've enjoyed it. It's not often you kind of have these discussions with people, so it's good to talk to someone on a sort of similar wavelength, I guess, because there's quite a lot we've agreed on. So it's good. Enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thanks, mate.